Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be talking about somewhat of a current Fortnite controversy, so to speak. If you guys remember back towards the beginning to middle of Season X, Fortnite implemented a patch into the game which totally changed turbo building. And that was done by changing the speed at which building pieces were turbo built from 0.05 seconds to 0.15 seconds. Now, what people probably remember most about that patch is that for about a day or two, it pretty much totally ruined building in Fortnite. Now, luckily, that was reversed a few days later, and it's been pretty much fine ever since then. However, the less popular yet still super important impact of that same update was actually what it did to breaking and replacing walls or just structures in general. Before the update, breaking and replacing an enemy structure was almost entirely ping-based. Timing and quickness definitely played a slight factor, but if you had really low ping, that was definitely way more important than the actual timing. Since ping is something that's almost impossible to change for the vast majority of players, a lot of people were rightfully angry that it was so important for breaking and replacing structures, which is obviously such a fundamental part of playing Fortnite. So the way they tried to change this was by making breaking and replacing structures revolved around a coin flip instead of being so ping-based. The way it worked was, if two players tried to place a structure in the same spot within a certain amount of time, the game would actually randomize whose structure would actually be placed. And even though some people complained that it made wall replacing way too luck and RNG based, I would say that the vast majority of people were actually in favor of that change. However, sometime around the beginning of Fortnite Chapter 2, players started to claim that the coin flip mechanic was either straight up removed from the game or just not working properly. Here's a clip from Tfu's stream a few weeks ago that kinda showcases why people would believe that.
Your wall is free.
Yeah, what the hell?
I took everything.
So what you saw right there may be a tad bit confusing, so let me just quickly break it down a bit. At first, Tfu had his building menu out and was just holding down the button to turbo build walls. But the player he was playing with was still able to break and replace his wall pretty much every single time. So then they decided to flip sides with Tfu trying to break and replace the other player trying to hold walls, and Tfu wasn't able to do it at all. So if coin flip was still in the game the same way it was before, there would really only be two potential explanations of how that would happen. The first would be that Tfu just had incredibly terrible RNG/luck in that one example. Technically, if coin flip were in the game, it would still be possible for someone to get the replace 5 or 6 times in a row like you saw there, but obviously the chance of the events in that clip actually happening would be incredibly low. The second potential explanation would be if Tfu simply didn't have good timing. One thing that a lot of people didn't realize or understand about the coin flip mechanic was that you had to break and replace almost perfectly for it to even trigger. But based on the fact that Tfu is literally a professional Fortnite player and seemed to be doing it perfectly from that clip, I don't think him having bad timing is actually the case there. And you gotta keep one thing in mind here with this whole controversy. As I mentioned towards the beginning of this video, the theories about coin flip being removed really started almost immediately after the beginning of Chapter 2. And as we've talked about before on this channel, one of the most odd parts of this new season is the fact that we haven't gotten any patch notes to explain anything that's changed in Battle Royale. So there have already been a few changes to the core mechanics of the game that were only really discovered because of the community. The most similar example to what people think happened to wall replacing would be what happened to Bloom. It was clearly changed at the beginning of the season, a ton of people noticed it, but since we never got patch notes, we never actually heard it directly from Epic. However, the wall replace and coin flip controversy became so popular over the last 1 to 2 weeks that Epic actually directly responded to it on Reddit. It all started with a post titled, "Wall taking is ping dependent again instead of a coin flip. This needs to be addressed." And the short text in the post basically said what we've been talking about in this video so far. As a high ping player, taking walls before Chapter 2 was fair and created opportunities for box fights. But now wall taking is back to being ping dependent and people are taking my walls on their first try. I can't even take another player's wall after 20 tries. I hope this gets addressed ASAP and gets reverted. At first, the Fortnite developers simply responded back with, "Hey, thanks for the report. Do you happen to have a video you could share with us that I could send over to the team to look at?" And then, after a few people responded with their own versions of proof, he came back a few days later with the following response. "Apologies for the delay in responding to this. Our team has been actively looking into this and testing wall replacing. After investigating, I can confirm that no values in how this feature works have been changed. Our team took into consideration high versus low ping and a few other factors while testing, and we can confirm that this feature is working as intended. While our testing has found no issues, your feedback is still valuable in how this is working." So depending on how much you actually trust Fortnite, there's basically 2 different ways you can look at this response. The first is basically, well, they said nothing has changed, so there you go. What more evidence do you need? Coin flip must still be in the game, and everybody who thinks it isn't is just wrong. But at the same time, a lot of people saw this response and kinda read between the lines a little. The specific part of it that a lot of people looked at skeptically was the statement at the end saying this feature is working as intended. I saw a bunch of responses saying something along the lines of, well, can you be a bit more specific? What exactly does working as intended actually mean? But sadly, the developer never said anything back. So now, it's time for me to give my opinion on this whole debacle. I don't want to sound like some crazy conspiracy theorist here, so I want to preface this by saying that it could all just be a placebo, but I really do feel like since the beginning of Chapter 2, something has changed. I typically play on very good ping, sometimes as low as 0, most of the time in the 5 to 10 range or so. When we know for a fact that coin flipping was active towards the middle and end of Season X, I would actually get my walls taken pretty frequently within the first 2 or 3 attempts by the opponent, and a lot of times even on their first try. And when it was flipped and I was the one trying to take the wall, it really did seem random. Sometimes I would get it on the first or second try, sometimes it would take 4 or 5. But ever since right around the beginning of the new season, it feels much more like it did before the initial coin flip update. There are obviously still times where I get my wall replaced fairly quickly or struggle to take somebody else's wall, but it just feels like my low ping is having more of an impact now than it did in Season X. But again, that's just my opinion that could easily be influenced by some kind of confirmation bias, so don't treat it like a fact. And there are definitely players out there that think coin flip is still in the game and was never removed or tampered with in the first place. I believe Cypher PK early in the season talked about how he thought something had changed, but then as he played more and more, he said that he changed his mind and he no longer believes that. So as you can see, it's kind of turned into this crazy little debate/controversy with people on both sides, and honestly, who knows if we'll ever get the truth about what's actually going on here. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down the comment section below. Do you believe that the general mechanics of structure replacing were somehow changed at the beginning of Chapter 2? Or do you think that coin flip is still in the game and the same as it was before? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.